Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Welcome to another episode of Haqiqatjou, where we discuss religion and politics, the two least controversial subjects. And today we are going to cover some very important news and do some analysis regarding the terror attack, the ex-Muslim terror attack that has struck Germany and very sadly killed 11 Germans who were in a Christmas market. The ex-Muslim terrorist drove his car, it was a rental car, through the crowd. It's actually a horrific scene if you've seen the video. He rams through the crowd and 11 people were killed, were murdered by this ex-Muslim, and over 70 people were critically injured, so there might be even more deaths reported later today. So this is very disturbing. It's horrific. It's something that we know about civilian deaths, constant civilian murders and deaths because of everything that's been happening in Palestine with the Zionist murder regime committing a genocide against the Palestinian people. And that obviously creates some level of desensitization to this type of horror. But still, this is something extremely disturbing that we saw in Germany at a Christmas market, presumably Christians here getting ready for their holiday, and this ex-Muslim terrorist just mowed them all down. And now we see a reaction that deserves quite a bit of commentary and analysis. A lot of shocking things have been revealed about this terrorist. At first, it was assumed or just stated that he was a Muslim. It was just assumed. You had all of these Zionist accounts, including Elon Musk, just presuming that this is a Muslim terrorist and only a Muslim can engage in this kind of violence. But quickly it was revealed that no, actually, this is not a Muslim. This is an ex-Muslim. He's not only an ex-Muslim, he hates Islam. He has dedicated his religion, or his life, I should say, to attacking Islam, demonizing Muslims, calling Islam a religion of hate, violence, bigotry, intolerance. And then it turns out that, or they claim that he's a Muslim. They want to paint him as a Muslim. And still, right now, a lot of accounts are repeating this lie or spreading this lie that he was a Muslim or he was doing taqiyya, he was hiding his true beliefs. Now that we know that he was a ex-Muslim, and it seems that he might have even been Jewish. And we know that a lot of these ex-Muslims not only adopt Zionism out of their hatred for Islam and Muslims, they adopt Zionism and they've been cheerleading the genocide of Palestinians, like that scumbag apostate prophet. This terrorist, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a big fan of apostate prophet. As we'll see, the Twitter account of this ex-Muslim terrorist was left up for many hours, and a lot was revealed about exactly his beliefs, exactly who he follows, who he considers to be his heroes. And Muslims won't be surprised that his heroes are all these ex-Muslims online. His heroes are ex-Muslims. His heroes are people like Geert Wilders, people like Tommy Robinson. As we'll see, Tommy Robinson has actually interacted and talked to this terrorist. He was following his Twitter account. Tommy Robinson. This ex-Muslim was a fan of all of these online personalities, specifically Zionists. So that's his ideology. That's his ideology. So whenever it's a Muslim terrorist who commits any kind of crime, no matter how small the crime is, they still call him a Muslim terrorist, for example, and call for banning all masajid, banning Muslims, tear down the mosques, burn the Quran. We need to deport all of these people because it's Islam. The problem is Islam. The problem is the ideology of Islam. specifically traditional Islam or political Islam. We have to raise all the masajid, burn all the Qur'ans, deport all the Muslims. That's what these ex-Muslims are constantly calling for. That's what these nationalists are constantly calling for, specifically the Zionist nationalists. But then when it turns out that the ideology of this terrorist is actually their ideology, a pro-liberal, pro-secular, pro-feminist, Zionist ideology, oh, suddenly it's not terrorism. Suddenly, oh, it's not a terrorist. This was just a lone wolf acting because he had mental problems. That's the pivot. That's the move that they make. It's the peak of hypocrisy, the peak of double standards, and we have to keep hammering them to point out that when it comes to violence and killing and bigotry, the biggest terrorist, the biggest source of terrorism for the past 250 years is one ideology, and it's not Islam. And it's not Christianity. It's liberal secularism. That is the biggest purveyor of destruction, death, and terrorism that we have seen for the past 250 years. And Zionism is a part of it, of course. And that's why you see such a close collaboration and a close affiliation between the ex-Muslims, like Apostate Prophet, and these bloodthirsty Zionists who celebrate and cheer when Palestinians are murdered. And also, let's not forget Destiny, right? Destiny is the one who's laughing at Palestinian babies getting murdered and slaughtered and starved to death. That's Destiny, right? If you have seen how mainstream media, the Daily Wire, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro will trot out Destiny as they laugh and joke about dead Palestinians. Their ideology is liberal secularism, and the claim that Islam is so dangerous and Muslims are so barbaric that we're justified in razing Gaza, in destroying the West Bank, and annexing all of this Palestinian land because Palestinians are Muslims and they're too violent and they're too barbaric to be allowed to live on this land. Israel is justified in clearing them out, in doing ethnic cleansing. And people like Apostate Prophet, people like Destiny, people like Jordan Peterson, give them hell, Jordan Peterson, people like Ben Shapiro, they're all complicit in this kind of dehumanization of Muslims and creating a fear of Islam that leads this ex-Muslim that we see to attack and raise and mow down German citizens, including children. I think there are 3 or 4 children. So, but they will never be held accountable, at least not in this dunya. They won't be held accountable by this liberal, secular, Zionist system. They're not going to get their accounts banned. They're not going to be dragged before committees to testify or to stand trial for inciting hate, for inciting violence. Of course they wouldn't, because the system that we're under is endorsing that ideology. That's the ideology of the West. The ideology of the West is terrorism. So of course they're not going to hold the terrorists accountable, the promoters of that terrorism accountable, like Apostate Prophet or Destiny or Geert Wilders, or any of these Zionists, all the Zionists that are in Congress, 99% of them, 99.99% of them, that have been for the past 13 months whitewashing Israeli genocide of the Palestinians. Of course they're not going to hold these people accountable. So this is the hypocrisy, and we have to keep hammering this home because there's a lot of people who disagree with the government. A lot of people in the West, they disagree with the government. They're beginning to realize that this whole liberal, secular vision for life, this American dream, quote unquote, is actually an American nightmare. that their tax dollars are going and paying for wars, constant wars, to kill millions of Muslims and to oppress people around the world in the global south. And the average Westerner is like, I can't live, I can't afford groceries, I can't get married and start a family and buy a house and buy a car. And I'm working constantly and barely making ends meet. And oh, guess what? Another $8 billion going to the Ukraine, another $10 billion in weapons going to Israel to go bomb Palestinians. People are sick and tired. But what the average Westerner needs to realize is the underlying ideology. The underlying ideology is liberal secularism. And unfortunately, you have these very shocking, in-your-face examples of terror because it happened in Germany. It happened in Europe. But the terror and the violence that's inspired by liberal secularism is of a systematic nature. A systematic nature inflicted on Muslims. Muslims are experiencing a Christian market or Christmas market massacre every single day, and in some places every single hour, because of the Israeli terror state. It's the same ideology behind it. And we'll see when it comes to this guy, this ex-Muslim terrorist. He was a hardcore Zionist. He was a hardcore liberal, secular Zionist. That was his belief system. And some people are saying, oh, no, he was an atheist. Okay, atheism is just a subfield of liberal secularism. The bigger problem, the true problem, is liberal secularism. Liberal secularism is the cancer that needs to be excised, that needs to be eliminated off the face of the earth, because it has the blood of tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people on its hands, because of colonialism, because of war and genocide that we have seen. And who have been the biggest victims? It's been Muslims. It's been brown people in general, brown and black people in general. So those are the facts. So let's get into some of the tweets that from this terrorist. He's still alive, by the way. He was apprehended, and there's going to be a lot more news coverage, and there's going to be a lot of Zionists and Zionist media that are going to try to spin this story to try to deflect and distract from the real message or the real motives behind this guy. So we have to be vigilant. We have to get the correct narrative, the truth out there, and spread it before they get the opportunity to completely distort what actually happened and why it happened. So, as usual, I will ask you to subscribe to our newsletter. The link is in the description below. Just click on that link, enter your email. That'll allow us to communicate with you in case the channel is banned because they don't want us to talk about the truth of ex-Muslim terrorism. So just go ahead and subscribe to that newsletter. That's the main purpose of the newsletter. It's so that we have a connection with you and we can inform you of updates if we're banned off of the mainstream social media. That's the main point of it. And go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. About 40% of you are not subscribed to the channel, but you watch our content. You love our content, alhamdulillah, but you're not subscribed. So go ahead and do that. It'll take you 2 seconds, and you can hit the notification bell so you'll get notified whenever we have a live stream. And also go ahead and contribute super chat. So if you have a comment that you want me to pay attention to and read, the best chance that you have for me to read it is to make it a super chat. I'm going to be looking at the chat as we go along, inshallah, and read your super chat, read your comments. I'm sure you guys will, some of you know more about the situation than me because it's developing. So in the hour that I do this live stream, or 2 hours, there's going to be new information that'll come out. So let's have a discussion, get the chat rate up so that we can really boost the stream, inshallah. Okie dokie. So let's look at this guy's extremist ideology. It's quite interesting. So this is the guy's name, Talib Abdul Mohsen. and his handle was Dr. Talib Jawad. And I went to his profile last night on Twitter, took some screenshots. A lot of other people were quickly trying to download as much from that Twitter profile as possible because it was going to be imminently deleted. And they delete these people's profiles because they want to control the narrative and they want to give the spin that, oh, this was actually an extremist from Iran, maybe. He was an Iranian. This is justification for why we need to go and bomb Iran for Israel because their terrorists are coming and massacring Christians in the market, in this Christmas market. That's what they would have wanted to spread, but unfortunately maybe Elon was asleep. Maybe Elon wasn't really aware that this was the Twitter profile, so it wasn't deleted, and people got all kinds of screenshots, and they revealed his true ideology. They revealed where his allegiances actually lie. So this is a narrative disaster for the mainstream. And you'll notice that with other killings or mass shootings, the authorities will hold on to the manifesto. They'll quickly delete all of the social media profiles because they want. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? The claim that they want to make is, oh, we have to protect people. We have to protect people's rights. Now, the real reason they delete it is so that they can control the narrative and that they're the only source for information about who this person is. That is the main purpose for deleting their social media profiles. But they failed in this case. It was a spectacular failure. So we read here, he was tweeting, Germany's goal has become clear: to spread Islam in Europe. They are attacking political movements critical of Islam by infiltrating them with corrupt people, including addicts, prostitutes, and thieves, in order to corrupt the movement from within. So it's interesting. So he's talking about other ex-Muslims. Ex-Muslim movement is full of prostitutes and thieves and addicts. Degenerates, like someone like Apostate Prophet. Like, these are the kinds of people who are in his movement critical of Islam. Then they use the dirtiest methods against those who expose the infiltrators. Since the movement of the former Saudi Muslims was successful, they began to plot against it. Yeah, people claim that Muslims are conspiracy theorists. Look at this. He thinks that there is this global conspiracy to undermine ex-Muslims by sending in prostitutes and crack addicts and thieves, low-level criminals into his movement. No, I think that's who you people are. That's who ex-Muslims are. It's just a bunch of degenerates. Why? Just look at how they go online and they spread all kinds of hate against Muslims. Oh, I hate Islam because my mom didn't let me have a boyfriend and didn't let my boyfriend run a train on me. Oh, I'm so oppressed. That's why I hate Islam. Oh, I'm ex-Muslim because my daddy didn't let me drink my brains out. Oh, I wanted to drink so bad, just like all my other friends, all my white friends and all my European friends. Oh, but he didn't let me do that, so now I hate Islam. Oh, that's their whole story. All of them have the same exact story. Oh, I'm ex-Muslim because my dad or my uncle, he said OnlyFans is bad, but I wanted to be on OnlyFans and make money. But he didn't let me. This shows the intolerance of Islam. That's the ex-Muslim movement. It's a bunch of failed OnlyFans, failed prostitutes, drug addicts. That's who they are. And it's very clear. And some of them are driven to hate and violence such that they mow down citizens, mow down just innocent people in a market, become a target of these deranged people. And there's been many examples of ex-Muslim terrorism, okay, specifically in the West. And we see there was a few years ago, I think maybe 5 years ago, the ex-Muslim of South Asian background who murdered his entire family. 6 or 7 people in his family, just killed them with a gun that he bought. murdered them and then committed suicide. And he left a manifesto saying that, yeah, I was just so mentally disturbed. I was cutting myself. I was going to therapy. And it's just because of Islam, and these Muslims and my family are oppressing me. So I'm tired of it. Just killing his whole family. These types of incidences are increasing. These types of incidents are increasing. And why is that? Are the authorities going to look into this ex-Muslim network and see what is going on? Like, why are they radicalizing so many of their followers with the amount of hate that they're spewing, especially post October 7th? Because the mask has dropped. Someone like Apostate Prophet, he doesn't even pretend like he's not in favor of murdering Muslims. He doesn't even pretend. He's cheering and celebrating when Palestinians are slaughtered. So this is a radicalizing element. Authorities need to really ask some questions about this ex-Muslim network. But they won't, again, because the ideology behind the ex-Muslims is the same liberal secular ideology of the entire system. And they're the biggest criminals. They're the biggest purveyors of terror. Okay, let's look at this tweet. First, I assure you that if Germany, so this is also this guy, Talib. First, I assure you that if Germany wants a war, we will fight it. If Germany wants to kill us, we will slaughter them, die, or go to prison with pride, because we have exhausted all peaceful means, and all we have received from the police, state security, the prosecution, the judiciary, and the Federal Ministry of the Interior is more crimes against us. Peace is of no use with them. So this is pretty clear incitement to violence, but no problem. Like, this is not flagged on Twitter. It doesn't get any kind of limited visibility. In fact, his Twitter account was thriving. His Twitter account is thriving. Why? Because he shares the same ideology with Elon Musk. Elon Musk also has a big problem with these dangerous immigrants. Same kind of ideology as this Talib guy. So that's the thing with Twitter. Certain accounts are flagged. Certain accounts are deboosted and throttled, like my account. But accounts like this are allowed to grow and spread, even when they say we need to, we will slaughter them. We will slaughter them, Germans. No problem. There's nothing. There's no one monitoring this account. There's no one deboosting his tweets, putting, visibility limitations on his tweets, even when he's explicitly saying we will slaughter them. That's called ex-Muslim privilege. That's the privilege that you get as an ex-Muslim, especially if you're a Zionist ex-Muslim, which, as we see, he's a hardcore Zionist. You get certain privileges. You can, on Elon Musk's Twitter, you can call for slaughtering people. Oh, no problem. That's your opinion. And it's not against the law to have that opinion. But if you say one thing about the Talmud, if you say one thing about Zionism in general, like Zionism is this or that, and look at the control that Zionists have in these governments, oh, that's hate. Oh, you're inciting violence. You're inciting violence against Jews, against Zionists. This is a crime. Crime where? Isn't this free speech? Isn't this free speech? But if you explicitly say we will slaughter them, no problem. Look at this. He's retweeting this Israeli account talking about Greater Israel. Min al-Furat ila Nil. From the Euphrates to the Nile. Beautiful Greater Israel, yeah. Wipe out Amalek. Wipe out the Gentiles so that we can establish Greater Israel, as it says in the Bible, as it says in Genesis. The Egyptians, the Iraqis, the Syrians, the Lebanese, part of the Turkish, part of Turkey. Just wipe it all out. Jordan, that land, God has said, is only for Jews. So Greater Israel, when people, you know how they claim that saying free Palestine from the river to the sea, that's a genocidal statement. That's genocidal. But the image of Greater Israel, that is a much more explicit hate symbol and a more explicit call to genocide, because it's based on the Bible, and specifically the Bible verses that say this land must be cleansed. Greater Israel, from the Nile to the Euphrates, must be cleansed. And that's the belief of Netanyahu. That's the belief of all of these Israeli settlers that are committing terrorism against Palestinians day in and day out. Not even talking about the IDF. We're talking about the settlers, the Israeli settlers, which are about 11%, 10 or 11% of the Israeli population, who believe in the literal implementation of these verses in Genesis. We have to cleanse the land. Or not Genesis, beyond Genesis, also in the rest of the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible, rather. So this is his belief system. He believes in Greater Israel. Is everyone who posts Greater Israel suspected now? Should they be suspected of being secret terrorists? I think that's reasonable. If you just like if someone posts a swastika, or someone posts anything that is Nazi related, they get flagged, they get doxxed, they get attacked, they get banned. Anyone who posts Greater Israel should be suspected of being an extremist. This is the what's the term that they use? This is the pipeline to terrorism. This is the pipeline to extremism. People who are posting Greater Israel should be suspected. And the synagogues that are teaching this should be suspected. What kind of extremism are you teaching? In your synagogues, in the yeshivas, we have to know this is a threat to the European people or the American people, right? Right? That's the standard that you use with Islam. That's what the PREVENT program, the CVE program, was all about. You said that you're worried about Islamic terrorism, quote unquote, Islamic extremism, and also white extremism, right? Those are the two extreme categories of people, right? But this is the pipeline to terrorism. Greater Israel, posting Greater Israel, saying how much you love Israel. And then, see, this is why I suspect that this Talib, he's an ex-Muslim, but I think he went from Islam to being a Jew. I think he might be Jewish, saying that the religion of God is Judaism. And he's like using the verse of the Quran and subverting it, saying, no, the true religion of Allah is Judaism. Al-Yahudiyya. So we shouldn't assume that he was an atheist. Germany, okay, here, let me just make this smaller. Germany is the only country other than Saudi Arabia that chases female Saudi asylum seekers all over the world to destroy their lives. I assure you 100% that revenge will come soon, even if it costs me my life. I will make the German nation pay the price of the crimes committed by its government against Saudi refugees. So he's very explicit, but was he being investigated? No. Was he getting his accounts monitored? No. Were the authorities coming and asking his social contacts? Well, what are his beliefs? Like, is he plotting something? Is he buying weapons? No surveillance, no monitoring. He doesn't even have to have like a secret network, like a cell of terrorism. He can just post it all on Twitter. His plans. He just posts his plans on Twitter, and not in multiple languages: English, German, Arabic. So Muslims who have been under this boot of mass surveillance from the surveillance state, and under the boot of this countering violent extremism program, the CVE program, the PREVENT program. We can't even get on a plane without going through 5 different levels of security screening at the airport. But you're an ex-Muslim from Saudi, and they roll out the red carpet. Tommy Robinson follows you on Twitter. You get interviews. The BBC profiled him, as we'll see. The BBC is profiling this guy and giving him a platform to talk about his ex-Muslim cause. It's beyond ludicrous. This is like a parody. Is this like a joke? Is this like some kind of prank that's being pulled on us? This is like a shocking level of double standards. Hold on. I have made a final decision that I will bring justice in 2024. I will not wait any longer. Meaning either justice or I die for it this year. Meaning either justice of the first kind or justice of the second kind. That makes the people who attack the Saudi refugees pay a very heavy price. How much more explicit can... And then with a skull. If the words weren't psycho enough, he just puts a smoking skull, like burnt, charred skull. Yeah, so this guy. And the other thing to note about him is that he attacked Christians. Okay, presumably these were Christians in the Christian market, or the Christmas market. So they can't give the excuse that, well, he was radicalized because Islam is so bad. He was radicalized. He had to turn to violence only because Islam is so barbaric and oppressive. He was driven into psychosis because of how oppressive Islam is. That's another narrative that they go with whenever an ex-Muslim lashes out and kills people. They can't give that narrative now because he specifically targeted Christians. What did Christians ever do to him? What did Christians? He has all this murderous rage towards German Christians that he wants to mass slaughter them. What did they do to him? Oh, the story is that he wanted to get full status, and because he was wanted in Saudi. Saudi Arabia wanted Germany to extradite him to Saudi Arabia to face trial for crimes that he had committed in Saudi. Now, I don't know if the claims of the Saudi government are accurate and their accusations against this guy are accurate. I wouldn't be surprised if this is just some Saudi dissident. Saudi Arabia has no problem with people leaving Islam and being ex-Muslim. Saudi Arabia has no problem, the new Saudi Arabia has no problem with apostates. They only have a problem if you're an apostate, but you also criticize the Saudi government. That's when they want to put you in prison or worse. Otherwise, you can be an ex-Muslim, no problem. You can be, the biggest liberal ex-Muslim, go get some drugs and party at Middle Beast and dance with Shakira. They have no problem in Saudi. Saudi government has no beef with you if that's who you are. Saudi Arabia has a problem if you just criticize them. So if you say, for example, Saudi hasn't gone far enough in liberalizing, Saudi hasn't gone far enough in promoting pornography and degeneracy, and they haven't gone enough to accept LGBT. Okay, now now that's a problem. Now that's a problem. You're criticizing the government. You can be as liberal as you want. You can be transgender, you can be homosexual, no problem. Ex-Muslim, no problem. But just leave the government's name out of it, right? So I suspect that he probably criticized the government. He's like a Khashoggi type, maybe. So Saudi was calling for his extradition, and Germany would not comply. Germany would not comply. And but they wouldn't give him full status, or he had these kinds of grievances. We don't know fully. There are claims being made about why he had this kind of hatred, this murderous rage against Germany. It's not clear. It seems like they opened their arms. They opened their arms to you. They're putting you on BBC. That's still not enough. That's still not enough for him. Another thing, he's a doctor. He's a physician. So his whole profile completely destroys all the standard Zionist narratives. Is there a path to justice? in Germany without bombing a German embassy or slaughtering German citizens indiscriminately? Question mark. I've been looking for this peaceful way since January 2019, and I have not found it. If anyone knows it, please guide me. Read the details in my tweet series to be shocked by the crimes committed by Germany against Saudi refugees and the obstruction of justice, no matter how much evidence we provide them. So he's explicitly talking about bombing embassies, slaughtering German citizens indiscriminately. No hate warning on his tweet, no deboosting. He had, I think, before the account was deleted, it was 45,000. Now I understand a lot of the follows came after he committed the terror act, but this wasn't some like nobody with like some random anonymous account. This was a big account on Twitter calling for bombing the German embassy. The real resistance against Israel. So now let's look at some of his Zionist tweets. The real resistance against Israel is the one-state solution. We call on the Arabs to take to the streets in demonstrations to demand that Israel annex the West Bank and Gaza, and if they so wish, to annex Lebanon as well. He's a big fan of Greater Israel. That's the one state that he wants. He wants a one state from the Euphrates River to the Nile River. So he was hardcore Zionist. All right, before we go on to any more tweets, I want to see your super chats because I'm sure you guys have a lot of good information for me to share. He also had a YouTube channel. Really? What is the name of the YouTube channel? I'll pull it up. I bet it's deleted by now, but... Okay, we got a super chat here from Chocolate Waldo. Appreciate you, bro. I find it interesting that the CIA admitted to keeping ISIS Twitter accounts up on purpose, but someone like this is off limits. Yeah, that's a good question. If it's someone who claims to be a Muslim radical, yeah, we want to keep some of those accounts up so that we see who follows them and who retweets them. But if it's this guy... calling for the slaughter of German citizens and bombing embassies, then no problem. Yeah, even YouTube has no problem with this guy having a channel. Interesting. Very interesting. Because they delete other channels based on activity outside of YouTube. So if you have a channel... and you are not violating YouTube's terms of service, but somewhere else, like on Twitter or on Rumble, you say something that YouTube doesn't like for whatever reason, they still will delete your channel. But these ex-Muslims have all kinds of privilege. Double standards for ex-Muslims, especially those who are Zionists. Imagine how he treated Muslims at the hospital. Probably gave bad surgeries or wrong medicine. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past this guy. He is mentally deranged. He's a mentally deranged person. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people were harmed by him. You can say the most abhorrent things on the internet so long as you're a Hasbara shill. Yeah, very true. As long as you're against Islam, YouTube will love you. That's what I'm seeing. That's what we've seen for years. For decades. People like Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson, Apostate Prophet and others, they can, or David Wood, they can smear Islam, they can smear Muslims, portray us as all being terrorists or secretly terrorists. They can cheer the genocide of Palestinians. They have no restrictions. Their accounts just keep growing with no end in sight. Daniel, do you read non-super chats? Yes, that's what I'm doing right now. David Wood lost his channel? No, he didn't. He gave it away. His channel is still up. His channel is still up. It hasn't been deleted. Yeah, he didn't lose it. He willfully gave it up. And he started another channel to spread the same garbage. Let's see. Ben Shapiro was the inspiration for a terror attack on Quebec Masjid back in 2017. None of his accounts were closed, even though 6 or 7 Muslims were martyred. Yeah, that was a horrific terror attack in Canada, and Ben Shapiro directly inspired that. And some of his YouTubes he has YouTube videos with millions of views that say that all Muslims, or the vast majority of Muslims, are secretly extremists who want to commit jihad in terms of slaughtering indiscriminately non-Muslims. He has videos like that on his channel or on other channels with his narration, his explanation, and that inspires a lot of hate. It inspires a lot of violence, but he's never held account. He's just promoted nonstop. Same with Destiny. Same with Apostate Prophet. Yeah, apparently there was some Saudi girl who warned the German police of the attack prior to it. Yeah, and they ignored it. They ignored the report. Daniel, I'm translating your book into Kurdish. Please reply to my email. Okay, I don't remember seeing an email, but maybe try again to email me. There's a problem with the email account, by the way. So people have been emailing this account, and that's why there's a new email account that I've put in the channel description. So don't email the old one. This is a good comment from Kim Jong Wins. Make sure to follow brother Kim Jong on Twitter. Have you noticed none of the Takfir squad have condemned them? Have condemned this ex-Muslim? This would be an easy PR win for them. Instead, they say it was a Shia plot. Yeah, that's very interesting. You think that they would have these Takfiri, Salafi sectarians, you think that they would have some wala for Muslims, and they would unite with other Muslims and saying that this is ex-Muslim terrorism, this is something that has really traumatized the Muslim community because you direct so much hate against Muslims, and it turns out it was actually an ex-Muslim. They should join other Muslims saying this, but because they don't care really about Muslims, they don't care about having wala to Islam and Muslims and the wider ummah, they want to make it a sectarian issue. They say, oh, he's a Shia. He was a Shia, so he wasn't even Muslim. Before he became an ex-Muslim Jew, he was a Shia. So that shows you their mentality, that it's not about Islam for them. It's only about scoring points against a different sect. And it also shows, like, this is also the narrative that Madkhalis want to push. Madkhalis don't want, like, the last thing that the Madkhalis want is for there to be suspicion about Saudis around the world, in the West. Why would Madkhalis care about that? Because Madkhalis are just Muslim Zionists. They're Muslim Zionists who are going to defend these secular states tooth and nail. So they're going along with the Zionist narrative, with the Saudi government narrative, that, oh, no, this has nothing to do with Saudi. This has nothing to do with, this is just a ex-Shia. He's probably Iranian. He probably has ties to Iran. That's what they want to push right now. What is he actually? Was he Shia before becoming ex-Muslim? I don't know. Okay, back to the tweets. And keep putting in the chat. I'm going to keep reading chat, so keep it coming. Oh, here's another thing. He was following Brother Rashid. Remember Brother Rashid, that ex-Muslim who converted to Christianity? Apparently on good terms with this terrorist, or the terrorist saw him as a hero. And I wouldn't be surprised if they have tweets interacting with each other. But I took this screenshot. Terrorism expert is Brother Rashid. Remember Brother Rashid, the guy who embarrassed himself on the PBD podcast that I was on in that debate? Advocate for freedom of speech, human rights, and religious freedom. Yeah, those values are what drive so much of the terrorism in the world. Those are the values that are driving the slaughter of Muslims around the world. So yeah, Brother Rashid is a terrorism expert, but not in the way that he might mean it, or you might interpret it. He's a terrorism expert because he's a fan of this kind of liberal secular terrorism, Zionist terrorism against Muslims. So this is something that you're not going to erase from the internet, that this mass murdering ex-Muslim was your fan, Brother Rashid. And then look at this, followed by Tommy Robinson. People quickly took this screenshot. Terrorist was followed. Tommy Robinson loved this guy, praised this guy. And I'll show you the clip right now.
Right, cool, yeah. Let's quickly do a quick Q&A.
That's him. Yeah? That's the guy sitting across from Tommy Robinson. Maybe they're plotting something off camera. Maybe we can do something to generate backlash against Muslims. You know, maybe we can do something to get the public to be more pro-Israel and support war, nonstop war in the Middle East. What can we do, Tommy? Is that what they're plotting?
Would you rather date a Muslim girl or a man? Come on, I have dated Muslim girls. Well, really? Yeah.
People say, even about immigration, people think I'm against immigration. I'd open the British Embassy tomorrow in Saudi Arabia and I'd let every woman leave. Let them all come over and leave every Muslim man scratching his head going, what's going on?
Yeah, he was a fan. Tommy was a fan of Saudi refugees like Talib, sitting across from him having a nice little chat about, oh, who would you rather date? Who would you rather date? Tommy Robinson, a coke addict who's in prison right now, actually, for his incitement against Muslims. But he is a fan. He's a fan of this terrorist. And then here comes Elon. So Ian Chong, you know, this Zionist shill, saying the attacker was a fugitive from Saudi who was wanted for rape, who reinvented himself as an atheist activist in order to secure full asylum from Germany. So these Zionists are in full damage control. Now that it's come out that this guy was a full-blown Zionist, fan of Greater Israel, wants a one-state solution from the Nile to the Euphrates. Now they're doing damage control. Oh no, he was actually Muslim. He only reinvented himself for the purpose of gaining asylum. That's why. Now they're the biggest conspiracy theorists, right? They're the biggest conspiracy theorists. Because even if Muslims are not the ones who have committed an act of terrorism, it's still the Muslims. It's still the Muslims. And then Elon Musk, another Zionist shill, basically the lapdog for Netanyahu and Ben Shapiro, Elon Musk, says, oh, the atheist angle was a scam. Who says he's an atheist? He said the religion of God is Judaism. That's not, is that what an atheist says? Does an atheist say that the religion of God is Judaism? I don't think it's been established that he was an atheist. I think there's more evidence that he was Jewish. He was a Jewish Zionist from Saudi. And Saudi Arabia has a lot of Jewish citizens, by the way. There are a lot of Saudi Jews. Why are we just pretending like that doesn't exist? So even Elon has to come in on the damage control, do the bidding of his Zionist masters. I have to admit that I was deceived by Western leftists. I thought they welcome refugees because they care for human rights. But my experience in Germany showed me that they welcome refugees because they want to Islamicize Europe. The real hero is this man, Geert Wilders. Islam is a lie. Muhammad is a criminal. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Quran is poison. Let's stop importing this totalitarian ideology. So he went from being a leftist to being this quote-unquote far-right, anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant. Europe is being Islamicized. And he supported the far-right parties in Germany, as we'll see. The same parties that Elon Musk supports, by the way. Maybe that's why his account wasn't throttled and deboosted, because he supports the same politics as Elon Musk. So, Geert Wilders. Can we investigate Geert Wilders? He's inspiring extremism. Are there some kind of Geert Wilders cells that follow him and his ideology, plotting other kinds of terror attacks against the leftists? And then look at this on Elon Musk's Twitter. Raid the mosques, ban the Quran, carry out mass deportations. Our patience has officially expired. So see, Muslims are guilty even when it's an ex-Muslim Zionist, potentially Jewish terrorist who commits this act. It's still the Muslims. Still the mosques have to be banned. Still the Quran has to be banned. We have to do mass deportations of Muslims. Our patience has officially expired. 1.9 million views on Elon Musk's Twitter. Imagine if someone had said, raid the synagogues, ban the Talmud, carry out mass deportations of the chosen ones. Our patience has officially expired. Imagine how far that would get on Twitter, on Elon Musk's Twitter. But if you say that about Muslims, no problem. 1.9 million views. Our algorithm is actually going to boost that. Elon Musk's algorithm is actually going to boost that. Oh, we're free speech. We're free speech. Okay, your free speech is free for inciting violence, inciting hate, as long as it's directed to Muslims, as long as it's directed to Palestinians. Same with YouTube. Like, your free speech, as long as the hate and the incitement to violence is directed to Muslims, no problem. Free speech. But if it's directed toward another group, if it's directed towards Jews or Zionists, oh, no, that's hate. No, that we can't allow that. You're banned. You're demonetized. You're banned. We're gonna actually, it's a hate crime in Europe. It's a hate crime in the UK. We're gonna actually prosecute you. But talk about Muslims, violence against Muslims, no problem. No problem. And this was a meme that Muslim Scion put out. And I tweeted it. It's pretty apt and accurate. MashaAllah, our meme master, meme genius, Muslim Scion. Follow him on Twitter if you haven't already. And he's also a moderator, and he'll put a link, hopefully, to his Twitter account. Yeah, look at this. This is exactly using Tom and Jerry portraying what has happened. A ex-Muslim commits terrorism, a Zionist commits terrorism, and then you blame the Muslims. Isn't this like so clear, transparent, like the deception that they're using against Muslims? And then they say, oh, Muslims are conspiracy theorists. Muslims think that everyone is against them. Yeah, well, it's based off of actual events. It's based on actual facts. That's what we're seeing. Muslims had nothing to do with mowing down 70, 80, 90 Germans in this Christmas market. We had nothing to do with that. The person who did have something to do with it, he did it, had a liberal secular ideology. He was a rabid Zionist. But you're not reporting that. You're not talking about it. You're not investigating that. Islam Haters is another account that you can follow. Hassan. Islam Haters, after hearing about the Germany Christmas terrorist attack, versus the same people after finding out the terrorist was a Zionist who hated Muslims. Yeah, it's very clear, these double standards. And then look at this cope from this guy. Talib Abdul Mohsen is not an atheist. He's a Shia extremist. Just because a Muslim self-identifies as an atheist or claims to have converted to Christianity, as in the recent case in the UK, it doesn't mean it's truth. This is taqiyya. Yeah, so this is probably a Saudi account, most likely Saudi Zionist. I don't know who this is. Mahyar Tusi, or maybe it's actually an Iranian. Okay, another like native informant. I don't know. But yeah, they're desperately trying to deflect and distract and derail that this guy was a Zionist. He was a Saudi Zionist, potential Jewish extremist. Maybe he was atheist, maybe he was Jewish, but Elon is saying, oh no, the atheism angle, it's not real. He's not a real atheist. No, he's a Shia. He's from Iran. He's an Iranian agent. Then here's another tweet from Elon. Yeah, so people are drawing, I don't know who Sean McGuire is. People are drawing the wrong conclusions from the Christmas market killer. Yes, he had extremely incongruent views and ergo was likely a schizo. His views aren't incongruent. All of this is related. It's perfectly congruent. You're a liberal, secular proponent of human rights who loves Israel. You're a Zionist. You think Judaism is the religion of God. All of that, that's very congruent. Those are the beliefs of the entire EU. The European Union, the United States government, I'm talking about the government, not the people, they all accept these as truths. You support liberalism, you support secularism, you support Israel. It doesn't get more congruent than that. That's literally their ideology. Oh, it's extremely confusing. Oh, he was a schizo. He didn't know exactly what ideology to follow. It's just not clear. Look at the deflection. And then Elon quickly, yeah, he was obviously a lunatic who should have never been allowed to enter Germany and should have been extradited when Saudi made the request. Suicidal empathy by the German government. Wait, Elon. He was a legal immigrant. You're in favor of legal immigration. So your policies actually wouldn't have prevented this. Right? But yeah, this is so much cope and misdirection. And then this nasty, disgusting Zionist scum saying, remember barely 6 months ago when a bunch of posters on here were touting some Muslim-Christian alliance against Zionism? The quote, Zionism in quotes, by the way. The Christmas market attack today in Magdeburg is the fruit of that alliance. I delete my account in shame. Oh, but unfortunately, it was a Zionist. It was a Zionist that committed the attack. So maybe anyone who calls for a Christian Zionist or a Judeo-Christian alliance should delete their account. Captive dreamer. You delete your account. He was a Zionist murdering Christians. A Zionist murdering Christians. That should be the headline. That should be the headline of the New York Times, of the Atlantic, the Wall Street Journal, CNN, BBC. Zionist murders Christians. Zionist slaughters Christian children. That should be the headline because that's the truth. And everyone who's watching needs to be spamming this. Okay, on social media. It was a Zionist who murdered Christians. Just like Zionists in Israel murder Christians and spit on them and trample on them. because that's what Judaism actually believes about Christianity. We've gone over it, gone over how in Judaism, in the Talmud, it says that Jesus is in hell burning in a vat of feces. That is what the Talmud says about Jesus. The Talmud says that the Virgin Mary was a prostitute, a harlot. These are the kinds of disgusting things that the Talmud, the most holy book within Judaism, says about Mary and her son Jesus. Peace be upon them. So how can there ever be a Judeo-Christian alliance, is my question. And now we see the fruits of it. I want to know, we need to look at this ex-Muslim, quote-unquote, atheist, quote-unquote, rather, because I think he might have been Jewish. Did he have a copy of the Talmud in his apartment? Was he reading the Talmud? Is that what radicalized him to go and mow down Christians at the Christmas market? He was definitely a fan of Greater Israel, and he's saying that the true religion of God is Judaism. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if he had a copy of the Talmud and was reading it. And the Talmud has some very anti-Christian ideas. A lot of anti-Christian hate in the Talmud. And it's also anti-Muslim hate, because we also love Mary. We also love Jesus Christ, peace be upon them. So a lot of these ideas, hateful ideas in the Talmud. Did the ex-Muslim terrorist have a copy of the Talmud that he was reading? It's possible. We need to look at his search history. Was he going to the Talmud online and reading it? He might have been radicalized by that. So on Twitter, you can say ban the Quran. Can we say ban the Talmud? For the hateful ideas it has, saying that Jesus was in a vat of boiling feces in hell. Do you think that's going to incite hatred for Christians? That's the Talmud. Is Apostate Prophet or some of these other ex-Muslims going to call out the Talmud for hate? No. They just defend the Talmud. Apostate Prophet, remember I debated him? He was a big fan of the Talmud. He loves the Talmud. He loves the Talmud, and he preaches the Talmud as a beautiful book of God. Why? Because Apostate Prophet is a fan of slaughtering people, as he's proven over and over again, talking about Palestinians. So, birds of a feather. Birds of a feather. Look at this. So, Geert Wilder says, she didn't back down for the hijab police from the Iranian mullahs. She's a true hero, and Islam is incompatible with freedom and respect for women. And Talib says, you are the true hero, Geert. You are the true hero. Yeah, look at this. This network needs to be shut down. He says, I and AFD are fighting the same enemy to protect Germany. To protect Germany from what? From Muslims. AFD they're having elections. You know, this terror attack coincided with elections happening in Germany, and AFD is the far-right nationalist party, the party that Elon Musk supports, by the way. And look at this. Only the AFD can save Germany, says Elon Musk. So maybe this is why his account has been boosted before they took it down after he slaughtered 11 people. AFD, they're big supporters of AFD. And then look at this rat. Salwan Momika, another ex-Muslim who incites hate against Muslims. This is the guy that is constantly burning the Quran in Sweden. Sweden wants to extradite me to Iraq to carry out the death sentence there, and I will be killed in the most horrific ways. Do you support or oppose Sweden's decision? Well, I think there were tweets showing that this terrorist in Germany was a big fan of Salwan. So what did Salwan say to radicalize Talib, Abdul Mohsen? What did you say, Salwan? That's my question. This ex-Muslim network needs to be investigated, and they need to be banned. because clearly this guy is putting out all kinds of radical hate on Twitter, on YouTube, and people like Talib are consuming that media and then going and mowing down Christians. They need to be investigated, but unfortunately the system shares their genocidal ideology as long as it's directed towards Muslims. This guy was also a big fan of Bill Maher. Bill Maher, of course, we know is a Jewish Zionist. Talib was tweeting him, retweeting him, exploring historical accounts of the homosexual relationship. Look at this. Bill Maher putting out this blasphemy against Islam. Bill Maher mocks the Saudi abaya and the Quran. He's begging Bill Maher to retweet him about his book to refute Islam. Wants to meet Bill Maher in person. So yeah, look at this. Is Bill Maher going to be flagged as radicalizing these terrorists, these ex-Muslim terrorists? Shouldn't Bill Maher be banned from traveling to certain countries because he's a hate preacher? Where's the consistency? That's my question. Where is the consistency? These are the measures that are taken against Muslims, not because the Muslims are advocating for any kind of violence, not because the Muslims are advocating any kind of terror, only because Muslims believe in the Quran. They want to maintain their traditional values. Muslims just want to be able to live without Zionist invasion and genocide. That's all that Muslims want. But because that's all Muslims want, we are surveilled. We are banned from traveling. We are banned from entire countries. We are put into prisons and detained. Our countries are constantly bombed just because we want to follow Islam and be traditional. Be traditional Muslims and live in a traditional Muslim country. We are smeared and we are attacked and we are killed. But when it's another ideology that is actually slaughtering, actually advocating for slaughter and bombing embassies, and you have this entire network of liberals and ex-Muslims and Zionists who are feeding this narrative to the masses, it's boosted, it's promoted, it's given the red or the gold star of acceptability by social media and the political establishment in the West. So we just have to expose these hypocrites. A series of tweets explaining why I wrote in my bio that I love Heart Israel. He just loves Israel, and he wrote a whole tweet. He can't, and this is not like recent, like this is a long history of loving Israel, loving greater Israel. Parts of Syria were lucky enough to join Israel. You mean when Israel invaded and forcefully annexed and occupied parts of Syria? He was a fan of that. He was a fan of that. So, yeah, I bet he was for Saudi normalization. I bet that's the one thing that he didn't criticize Saudi for, is normalizing with Israel. So, anyway. So let me go to your chat now and read more of your super chats. I mean, I do want to end the show by talking about colonialism and talking about these secular tyrants. So this is a critical point, because we've talked about the ex-Muslim terror network. We've talked about people like Apostate Prophet and David Wood. We've talked about Geert Wilders and some of these in the far right. We've talked about Elon Musk. We've talked about these entire governments that are all aligned ideologically: liberalism, secularism, and Zionism. But there's one group that we haven't mentioned yet, which are the secular tyrants who want to normalize with Israel. Secular tyrants in the Gulf, secular tyrants around the Middle East, who are also promoters of liberal secularism. And that includes, by the way, Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad also was a secular tyrant, And when we look at Bashar al-Assad's torture regime and these massive prisons where he is torturing Muslims, he was specifically targeting religious Muslims and imams and scholars and religious activists. He specifically was targeting them to put in his torture dungeons. So he shares the same ideology as Talib Abdul Mohsen, as this ex-Muslim terrorist. It's the same ideology. When MBS and MBZ want to spread secularism, they want to spread secularism across the Muslim world. It's the same ideology. It's the same ideology as Talib Abdul Mohsen. And they attack who? They attack Muslims. They attack Muslim scholars. They jail anyone who wants a traditional Islamic life, a traditional Islamic land. They target and they harass and they detain and they kill. So those secular tyrants, whether it's MBZ, MBS, Bashar al-Assad, and others, that whole group of secular tyrants in that network that are all normalizing with Israel, they share the same ideology as Talib Abdul Mohsen. And it's all the same rhetoric, it's the same ideology. We need human rights. You know, these are the components of the liberal secular project. We need secularization. We need to abide by Western human rights. And we have to have a security state. We have to have a security state to crack down on the religious conservative Muslims. This has been the policy of liberal secularism throughout the colonial period, and it's continued in the post-colonial period in the 20th century, and it has continued into the 21st century with the war on terror. This is why we have to recognize liberal secularism as the biggest force of terrorism over the past 250 years. And it's just aligned very conveniently with the Zionist project. Because the Zionists also recognize that the biggest threat to greater Israel is conservative Muslims and political Islam. So they have utilized and weaponized the West that has already been killing and murdering and slaughtering and genociding Muslims, weaponizing it to continue post-colonialism, post-war on terror, post-9/11 into the 21st century, and we still see Muslims being slaughtered and genocided in Palestine, in Lebanon, increasingly in Syria, in Yemen, because of this ideology. Are you putting it together? Like, you need to have a clear understanding of the enemy. You need to have a clear understanding of how the world works and how these ideas are connected. Because they try to confuse you, they try to deceive you, they try to make it seem like Islam has been the force of death and destruction. And Islam is the radical idea that leads to hate and slaughter. When it's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. It's this liberal democracy, pursuit of maximizing freedom and equality and tolerance under a liberal secular system. That is the ideology that has facilitated the most mass murder in the past 250 years. And now, in the past 75 years, combine that with Zionism. This is the mass murdering ideology that has to be stigmatized, that has to be identified for the cancer that it is. But they don't want you to connect the dots. They're distracting you and saying, "Oh, but is he a Shia doing taqiyya, or is he an atheist, or was he really an atheist, or he was just pretending so he can get a green card and get asylum?" That's all of this is a distraction. All of this is a distraction. So you have to be very clear-cut on what is true. What is the actual narrative? Okay, so let's look at the chat once again. The other component also that should be mentioned is, so I mentioned the human rights component of liberal secularism. I mentioned the security component of it, that we have to have mass surveillance of Muslims and detain them, restrict their travel, restrict mosques, restrict teaching of the Quran, restrict teaching of traditional Islamic values. That's all been the case for 2 centuries now because of colonialism and then post-colonialism and then the war on terror. But there's the reform project, the reform of Islam project, that is also a big component. So all of these reformists who are talking about, well, we need to liberalize Islam. Fine, fine, fine. We won't erase Islam off the face of the earth, but we just want to liberalize Islam. We want to reform Islam. They're a part of this too. They're a part. You don't think that Talib wanted to reform Islam? He did. That he wanted Islam to completely secularize and liberalize. Then he wouldn't have a problem with it. Islam can liberalize and secularize and become Zionist. You think he had a problem with these madkhalis? You think he had a problem with these madkhalis promoting reform of Islam? No. Okay, I'm going to pull up your chat now. Your thoughts on Nas Daly's latest video on haters? I haven't seen it. I'll check it out, but I'm sure it's a big laugh. Brother Berber, thank you very much for introducing to me to Sheikh Diddu. Please give us more. May Allah make it easy for him and you and yours. Well, I'm glad that I could introduce him to you. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Barakallahu Feek. Kim Jong wins. Thank you for your super chat. Follow the brother, mashallah. He has a lot of good insights. He's on Twitter, just Kim Jong wins, and you can follow him. Let's see. May Allah reward you, bro. Ex-Muslim traits: dishonesty, inferiority towards the West, ignominious. How do you pronounce ignominious? I read it. There are some of these words that I read all the time, but then I don't know how to pronounce. Yeah, these ex-Muslims are a big problem. I agree. What about progressivism, which appeals to people's vanity by telling them that they're enlightened and forward-thinking, whereas their ancestors were backwards? Progressivism is a major component of liberalism. Like, that's not a separate ideology. The Saudi Zionist terrorist appears to have a lot of admiration for the ground Saudi rabbi. How fascinating. He also tweets that Jesus was a Jew. Schofield Bible at play. Yeah, that's interesting. So maybe he was a Saudi Jew. Like, that hasn't been disconfirmed. And if he's tweeting the Saudi rabbis, I mean, he was a hardcore Zionist. That's without question. Daniel, which one do you think Syria will become? Sharia or Taghut democracy? Yet to be seen. I mean, there are indications on both sides, but I'll save the fuller analysis for a separate episode. Dan, do you think Gulf countries are using this issue to get people they don't like extradited? Yeah, I mean, that's going to be their main play that they make. They're going to say, look, you know, when we say someone's a terrorist, take us seriously. When we say someone's a criminal, take us seriously. Look what happened in Germany. So that's going to be definitely their play. To neutralize their political opposition in the West, because that's the main thing that they are concerned about. Their main concern is that they can't control the narrative when it comes to dissidents in the West. And they marshal a lot of money and a lot of resources to neutralize people who are criticizing them in the West. That's why they sick all of these Medkhali bots on me. That's why they sick someone like that Joke Bunkatella and that network. They sick them on me because I'm criticizing Saudi Halloween. I'm criticizing the Hindu temples that are built in the Gulf. Unprecedented rise in paganism and shirk in the Gulf because of these secular tyrants. So that kind of criticism reaches a lot of Muslims. It reaches a lot of Muslims in their countries. This is something that they're very concerned about. So they try their best to neutralize me by sending these lackeys, by sending these trolls. So definitely they're going to use this issue to further that. But that's why it's so important to point out that the liberal secularism that this guy believed in, this terrorist believed in, that's the same liberal secularism, Zionism, that these rulers believe in. So that's the core of the issue. That's the core of the problem. I can't believe how many people who usually go at Daniel online are silent about this Germany thing. Yeah, because they haven't gotten the orders yet. It's like still developing, so they haven't got their exact script yet from the Gulf. So that's why they're silent right now. They're hoping that they can make a connection to Iran. They're hoping that they can make a connection to Iran so that they can claim that, oh, this is Shia. This is Shiism, this is Iran. Don't let them distract you from the real issue, says OnlyPath. Go ahead and follow OnlyPath on Twitter as well. Absolutely right. We can't let them distract us. Daniel is not suicidal. Yeah, I'm not. Put that on record. AK, really appreciate your super chat. Yeah, so any other chats? Any other substantive points before I log off? I always love these comments. After we realize what the actual narrative is, what is the solution then? How do we take action as an ummah? people, the current action required is to spread the narrative. How about we do that first? How about we do that? How about we get people woken up? Because as far as I know, if you look at what's been going on social media, the main concern of the ummah supposedly is what are the sifat, how do we interpret the sifat of Allah, and is istighatha shirk or not? That's the main issue that the whole ummah has to be embroiled in. We have to be embroiled in, are we Ash'ari, are we Maturidi, are we Salafi, are we Athari? Like, that's the real concern. That's the real concern of the ummah. If you have paid attention for the past 6 months especially. So how about we all get on the same page on what the true threat is? Liberal secular Zionism. Because if you recall, the last debate that I did was precisely on this issue. You had a bunch of bumbling morons, 2 of them, debating me, saying that no, the biggest threat to the ummah is Shiism, is Shia Iran. So the big task is to realize what is actually the biggest threat to the ummah. That's the first step. The second step, after that's done, then we can talk about, like, the big step is to get back to pan-Islamism, Muslims uniting and creating a pan-Islamic bloc. That's the first step that we need. That's the action that we need to take before we can get to the bigger goal of Khilafah, establishing true return to Islamic glory. That's the step-by-step process. But if we don't recognize the enemy is liberal secular Zionism, then we're not going to get there. Oh, yeah. So here's something that I didn't know. What do you think of Apus, apostate prophet, following that terrorist, and he unfollowed after the terrorism? Huh. Not surprising. I told you I suspected it. I suspected that Apus is a fan of these ex-Muslim terrorism. It's not surprising he was following the account, but I'm sure someone got a screenshot of that. By the way, I said that he was on BBC, but I didn't actually play the video. So let's play that. This is from the BBC. I hope that they don't give a copyright notice to this, but I wouldn't be surprised. So here's BBC platforming the terrorist.
Saudi Arabia, I'm an activist. I created a website to help people seeking asylum.
So he's like one of the leading ex-Muslims in the West. And he's created a website specifically for getting ex-Muslims out of Saudi, as if that's like a big problem.
Especially from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf region.
Talib is an ex-Muslim. He lives in Germany where he sought asylum after his life was threatened back in Saudi Arabia. His website has helped hundreds of ex-Muslims flee the Gulf, as if like this is a big problem. It's only people who want, like, these ex-Muslims that they just want to, their family is not going to pay for them to go relocate to the West. So they want a free ride to the West. That's basically what it is. There's no like, who's preventing you? It's just your family doesn't want you to run away, and you don't have the money to relocate. So you want people in the West to foot that bill. So you created this website to facilitate. It's like a grift, ex-Muslim grift. Oh, apostasy can be punished with a prison sentence or death. Yeah, I'm sure Saudi is really killing all the apostates. Those are the only two things that Saudi Arabia does: kill apostates and host Shakira, and Iggy Azalea, whatever of these concerts. Those are the only two things that Saudi does, and build like malls that are shaped like the Kaaba and are designed to mimic the Kaaba, to mock Islam. Those are the only kinds of things that Saudi Arabia does.
Yeah, I use basically WhatsApp, Twitter, Telegram.
Yeah, those are his social media accounts. So now, we need to have more surveillance of all of these accounts. Even though his most inflammatory things, he was saying it openly. It's not like he was trying to use some kind of backdoor network on these social media platforms.
If I have time, I spend, totally helping Saudi asylum seekers between 10 to 16 hours a day.
He's a really hard worker. I thought he was a physician, but he's spending 16 hours a day. Every waking hour, basically, he's helping these poor ex-Muslim
if I have time,
refugees.
The only Arab country from which I did not have an ex-Muslim seeking help until now from me is Oman. 90% of people who approach me are women between 18 and 30 years old.
Yeah, so this is BBC is like promoting him, promoting his services. This is unbelievable. Like, you couldn't have planned something to be so disastrous for the standard narrative against Islam if you had scripted it yourself. Ex-Muslim is his full-time job, yeah. He looks like an actor. Terrorist profiled in the BBC, promoted. His services are promoted. When they add these sounds like it's a serious matter to add credibility. Yeah, this is such a sad situation. These ex-Muslims, they're trapped. What are we gonna do? Pre-OnlyFans models. Yeah, 90% of these women, they come and immediately open an OnlyFans. Yeah, so again, guys, it's important to remember this is liberalism, secularism, Zionism. That's really the source of terrorism in the world today. We just got a very clear-cut example in Germany, but this is the kind of terrorism that is constantly massacring and murdering Muslims around the world non-stop. And Palestine is the biggest example, Lebanon, Yemen, increasingly Syria. Syria was the victim of this ideology for 50 years under Assad, him and his father. So okay, guys, appreciate you watching, and hope you benefit from the analysis. Inshallah, we're gonna have more Haqiqatjou coming up next week, and we're gonna have some good topics prepared for you as well. We're gonna get into the whole Syria issue more. We're going to talk about some of the religious scholars who are defending Bashar al-Assad historically in Syria, and maybe the most corrupt mufti that you've never heard of. The most shockingly corrupt mufti. We're going to talk about, well, what direction is Syria going? What direction is Jolani taking the country in? Are they going to be fully secularized, like just another Jordan? Or is there going to be something different coming out of Syria? We're going to analyze that and the updates or the whatever is going to happen from now until then, inshallah. So be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you will know next time we go live, inshallah. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Obviously, subscribe to the newsletter if you haven't already. Just put your email. Go to the link in the description below, and we are going to notify you of interesting updates, new books that we're publishing, ebooks that you will want to download for free, and that will also be sent to the email list in the near future, inshallah. And leave me your comments, obviously. Leave your comments below if you have any thoughts on this PSYOP. The attempt to PSYOP is going to be much difficult now that we're putting out the correct narrative, the truth, the facts that we have uncovered about who this person is and what his motivations are. So spread that. You know, this is Zionist terrorism targeting Christians. That's the fact, right? And I gave you all the proof and all the evidence. And people like Apostate Prophet, David Wood, this entire ex-Muslim network, they promoted literally this Zionist. They promoted literally him. But even if they didn't literally promote his account and feature him, they promoted the ideas. And this is what they try to do with Muslims all the time. They try to dehumanize Muslims and put this kind of suspicion on all Muslims just because we want to be Muslims and follow the Quran and follow a traditional way of life. Just because that's not liberal and just because that's not Zionist, you've smeared us as terrorists. Meanwhile, your network is out there slaughtering Christians in a Christmas market. So you've just, you're over. Like, your career is over if you're an ex-Muslim, because this guy is now the face of your movement. He was the face of your movement on the BBC. We're going to make sure that now he is the face of the ex-Muslim movement and the Zionist, especially the Zionist ex-Muslim movement. So spread that, share that, get the word out, make sure your friends and family understand this news because it's significant. And inshallah, we're going to continue next week with more Haqiqatjou. Appreciate everyone joining and putting your comments in the chat. If you submit a super chat, I also really appreciate it. It does a lot to support the channel. Jazakumullahu khairan. I'll catch you on the next Haqiqatjou, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.